Hey guys, it is Jen Lefforge. Welcome to my channel. I am so glad that you are here today. So we are going to be talking about all things Run Disney and specifically my recent race at Disneyland Paris. I ran the half marathon there just 2 weeks ago. I'm spilling all the dirt. I'm telling you all the things that were fantastic, a few things that frustrated me a little bit, and what you should consider if you're thinking about running Disneyland Paris. So let's get started. So first of all, of course, I have to show you my medals. I already showed these in my shopping haul, but I just can't show them enough. So this is what I earned for the half marathon, is this absolutely beautiful Disneyland Paris half marathon medal. It says Disneyland Paris at the bottom. It's got Mickey. It's got the Paris castle on it. I love it. And then of course the piece de la resistance, as they say, is my Castle Chute 2 Chateau medal. This baby was earned by running a half marathon in January and then running an additional half marathon, of course, in Paris. So I could not be happier with both of the medals. They are beautiful. They are going to be a lovely addition to my collection, and I am very, very proud of both of them. I'm also wearing the shirt that I got from the Disneyland Paris half marathon, which is just couldn't be cuter. I love Sorcerer Mickey, and Sorcerer Mickey speaking French was just the cutest thing ever. I may insert a little clip here of him doing that.
Yeah, this is snail. C'est fun, c'est chouette aussi.
And as I'm talking, I'm gonna insert clips here and there of the race course and the cheering and all of that, so you can kind of see what it is that I'm talking about. But I actually threw it out on Instagram to see if you guys had any specific questions about the race, and thank you so much for those of you that responded, because I was kind of heading in one direction, but your questions really helped me kind of zone in on where I wanted to go with this video. So if you are not already following me on Instagram, please make sure you go and do that. That's my favorite place to kind of talk to you guys, because we can't really message. I mean, you can comment on videos, but Instagram I feel like is a lot more real time, and I kind of keep everybody up to date on my daily life and all of that over there. So please make sure you go and follow me on Instagram. So let's start with the things that I loved. And there were a lot of things about this race that I loved. So the first thing, of course, is it's in France. How can you go wrong with it being in France? I had not been to France for 30 years. The planning of my trip is something I intend to do as a completely separate video, because I know a lot of you had questions about that, and I will answer those questions. But it was just such a lovely trip. I loved going into Paris. I loved Disneyland Paris is actually about a 45-minute train ride outside of Paris itself. So it is kind of in the middle of nowhere. So a lot of the runners dedicated days to the race, and then they went into Paris for their touring. That would have actually been a great call, because I went into Paris and it was kind of a trek. So that would have been great. But Disneyland Paris itself is just, it's so magical, and it's like you feel like you're sort of at Disney World, but you're sort of not, and you're sort of at Disneyland in California, but you're sort of not. And those of you that have been know what I'm talking about. It's really difficult for me to put into words, but just such an imaginative, magical place, and I absolutely fell in love with it. Now the race itself, the course, which this is like top of my list of things that I love. So number one would be it's France. Number two would be it's Disneyland Paris. Number three would have to be the course. First of all, you're in Disney Park longer than any race I think that I've ever run at Disney. A solid at least, gosh, maybe 15K of the 21K was either in a park or through the resorts of Disneyland Paris. And that part of it, in my opinion, cannot be beat. They did a lot of really creative out and backs to ensure that we were on Disney property. We did an out and back on Main Street, USA. Lots of great views of the castle, running through the castle, around the castle. The course couldn't be beat, in my opinion. Very few hills. There were a couple of slight inclines, but nothing that I even thought twice about, if I'm going to be honest. Just fantastic. The course is amazing. Now, the part of the run that you're not in the parks themselves, either Disneyland Park or Walt Disney Studios, you're in the countryside and you're running through these absolutely stunning neighborhoods where the little kids are up in the balconies waving, and the crowd support was fantastic. Course support, fantastic. Plenty of water stops, plenty of Powerade. They had these little cereal bars available on the course, plenty of entertainment. They had drum corps and cheerleaders and bands and I'm going to be showing you as hopefully as I'm talking, but where can you run in the world that is like that? I was blown away by how beautiful the course was. In fact, when I realized I only had about 5-6K left, I actually started getting a little emotional because I didn't want it to be over. I absolutely loved this race course. So it is now topping my list. Y'all know I love the Star Wars half marathon race course. It's been my favorite. The Disneyland Paris half course is now my new favorite. So other positives about the race, I loved the resorts there. I did the pasta party, which I actually thought was a pretty good value, and it was extremely convenient. We did that on Saturday night, and that was really fun. There weren't any characters there or anything, but the food was really solid, and I felt like they did a really, really good job with that. I want to say that was 35 euros. I'll have to go back and double check my receipts, but that was not a terrible value considering how expensive the food is in France. And we really enjoyed that experience. And it was at the New York hotel, which I'm not sure I would have seen otherwise. So that was really awesome. The energy, someone on Instagram had asked me, did I feel like the energy was the same as US races? And the answer is categorically yes. There were runners from all over the world, by the way, just like there are when you run a Run Disney race in the US. It didn't matter if the runners that I met, some were from Italy, some were from Germany, some were from Spain. I think I met a couple that were actually from France. A lot were from the UK. So it did have more of an international feeling than the Run Disney races have in the United States, but I loved that. I just think runners are runners are runners, and we may speak different languages and be from different cultures, but when we run, we're all part of the same community. So that piece of it I thought was just beautiful. The people who cheered were predominantly locals, and I loved that. I mean, it's fun to be cheered for in a different language, but their enthusiasm was exactly the same. And again, the support of the athletes I felt like was really, really good. Now let's kind of move into a few things about it that were a tad on the challenging side. Logistics. It is more complicated to run a race in France than it is in the US. There are a couple things on the front end that you need to be aware of, such as you do have to have a medical certificate, which obviously they don't require in the US. It's a law. There's nothing, no one's doing it to make us jump through hoops. It just has to be done. So make sure, you know, if you don't have a good relationship with your doctor, it's probably time to go in for a physical anyway, but you will need to turn that in. There's a deadline that's a couple of months before the race, and you do have to turn in a medical certificate. So make sure that you understand that going in. There were waivers that had to be printed out for basically everything. That would not have been that big of a deal because of course we have to print out waivers for US races as well, right? But they did not send the waivers out in some cases until late Wednesday. And the races, if you were running the 5K, the races started on Friday. So you had the 5K on Friday, the 10K on Saturday, and the half marathon on Sunday. So if you're traveling from the United States, you've probably already left the country. So you didn't print that out before you left home. And the lines to print out that waiver, we were in line for well over an hour waiting to print the waiver. Now my tip on that would be if you don't print it out before you leave home, have your hotel print it out for you. That would have been a far quicker proposition. We couldn't even figure out why it was taking so long, and then we determined it was because the European keyboards, it's not a QWERTY keyboard. So runners, it was taking runners a very long time to figure out. They were hunting and pecking and trying to log in with their registration. That thing felt unnecessarily complicated. Let me just put it that way. So it meant for very, very long lines, and that part was not great. So if you do it, pack your patience, be aware that the logistics are not going to be the same. Now there were two for sure, representatives of Run Disney that were from the US that heard our concerns and were very helpful, and that was really great. But for instance, then they wanted us to get back in the line to print out the waiver for our pasta party. They didn't just have like a list. So we were like, we're not doing that. So she said, fine, just print it out at your hotel and bring it with you to the pasta party. When we got to the pasta party, she said, no, you have to go back to the expo to get a wristlet. And we were like, nope, we're not doing that. we already were told that we could just bring this, and so they let us in, but that part of it was a bit odd. Also, when you finished the race, if you were participating in a challenge, oh, by the way, have you seen my medal? Have you seen my Castle to Chateau medal? I'm just kidding. If you participated in any of the challenges, you got your bib there, and then you got your medal at the finish. Then you had to walk all the way back to the expo to get the rest of your medals. Now, that was where the drop bags were anyway, and I had a drop bag, so that part wasn't that big of a deal, but I did hear a lot of runners complaining that they didn't have a central location when we got our half marathon medals to pick up their challenge medals. So I guess my word of advice there would be just understand that everything is going to take a little bit longer than you think it should. And getting frustrated about it isn't gonna do you any good. You just have to kind of, like I said, pack your patience. Definitely voice your concerns. Lindsay and Patty that I was there with, I kind of asked them what their thoughts were on it, and they felt the same way. We were all very grateful that we were able to chat with the representative from Run Disney, because I really felt like she heard us, and there were definitely some things that could have been streamlined. Having said that, considering the amount of runners, I mean, I'm not sure that is necessarily a Run Disney France thing, because I mean, I've had some horrible lines in Run Disney races in the United States as well. So there was nothing about that couldn't be overcome. Another one of the little bit of a con for me was my body just being really tired from jet lag. And I didn't even think about that being an issue, but you know, it is kind of exhausting. Jet lag is an issue, and my race time was not good. If you've watched the other Paris vlogs, which if you haven't, I hope that you'll go and check those out. I was struggling with a cold. I was dealing with jet lag. My time was horrible. I had a really good time when I was out on the course. It just took me way longer, and I did walk a lot more than I had anticipated that I would. And I was very well trained going into this race. So I would say, I mean, you know, when I'm not well trained for the race, I'm the first one to say it was what it was. This race, I really did train for, but it felt way harder than I think it should have. And I do think that jet lag had something to do with that. So I definitely, it certainly isn't anything that would keep me from doing the race, but it's something to consider when you're working through your time goals. I think you just have to accept that, at least for me. Now, I know other people, jet lag is not even a big deal for them. Maybe if you're, you know, under 40, it might not affect you that way. But for me, the jet lag definitely did affect me. Any other cons I can think of? I stayed off property, which there was a bit of a challenge with the transportation, but really not bad. The Radisson Blu asked us all to check in, and we all shared a cab to go over race morning, so that was a piece of cake. I think we all ended up paying €2 a piece maybe for this big cab that took all of us over, so no problems there. Coming back, my hotel had their regular shuttle running, so that was not a problem at all. If you're going to stay off property for the Disneyland Paris half, which I would do in a heartbeat, the Disneyland Paris hotels were all about $300 more a night than where I stayed. I know some people got better deals, but you probably booked way earlier than I did. I only paid about $100 a night for the Radisson Blu. So I mean, every time I got delayed, I kept thinking, okay, what's my hourly right now? Like, what am I making because I stayed off property? And I really liked the hotel a lot. I'll put my room tour right here so you can see it. But you may want to have either Uber downloaded to your phone or a local taxi company so that if you get stuck, if the shuttle for your hotel isn't running, you can go ahead and call a cab. I did find it far easier to walk over to one of the hotels and get a cab from there. It was easier for the Uber driver to know where I was, and that was just an easier proposition all around. So that's something for you to consider as well. So if you want to run Disneyland Paris, I definitely think you should. I think any Run Disney fan would find this to be a thoroughly enjoyable experience, and I would definitely, if it's on your bucket list, make plans and just check it off, because this is completely doable for you. I don't want the planning to feel intimidating or any of that. It's a great race. It's in a fabulous place. I highly recommend it. I'm sure you have questions. Please put those in the comments below. I will do my best to answer those. If they're about how I plan the trip, like I said, I will have a video coming up in the next couple weeks about that. So definitely post your questions so that I kind of know what direction to go in for that video. But Disneyland Paris, 2 thumbs way up. I may do it again sooner rather than later. Thanks for being here today, you guys. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.